Welcome back. You're listening to the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. One thing that every business owner, every entrepreneur needs to do when they get started is make a decision about the entities that they're going to establish. So joining me on the phone, I've got Motty Stone, who is an expert on this subject. And I know a lot of business owners don't necessarily make the right decision. Motty, when somebody has a business idea, what is the first thing that they need to do and why?
Good morning, Shalom. So the very first thing you need to do when you have a business idea is you need to make a decision about how big is this business idea. Is this a business that you're going to run out of your garage on the weekends and try to make a few $100 a month? Is this something where you're going to make it your own full-time job, but it's just you working? Is this something where you're going to try to be employing 20 people? Are you going to seek investment? Are you going to have partners? Are you going to need special licenses? Because the size of the business is going to determine what types of business avenues are really going to be open to you and what are just going to be poor fits.
Interesting. So what are the options available to business owners? What are the things that they should be looking at, and what are the fees involved?
Well, the first question that I know you wanted to talk about today was whether or not you should start a business entity. So, again, the first example I gave was you're starting something in your garage, you're going to try to make a few $100 a month, and that's it. You might not want to have a business entity. You might just want to be Joe's skateboard repair shop, and that might be all you ever need. But if something that's going to be a full-time job, if you think you're going to need to have your own separate bank account for your business, if you're going to start handling real money, real tax consequences, real income, if this is going to be your full-time job, certainly if you're going to employ somebody or if you're going to have anybody else that's in the business besides just you, you're going to want to have a business entity. And there's really two big considerations that factor in when you decide what kind of business entity that you want to form. The first one is, do I want limited liability, and what does that mean? So limited liability means that if somebody sues the business, they aren't suing you personally. So if you have a house that's in your name personally, and then your skateboard repair business has somebody trip and fall, and they want to sue you for their injuries because you did a shoddy job repairing the skateboard, they can't take your house. They can't go after your house. The only thing they can do is they can go after the business and the business's assets. And the bigger the money that's involved, obviously, the more that you're going to be concerned about that sort of thing. So the first decision you have to make is, do I need limited liability? And then the next big, consideration about limited liability is, do I have partners? Do I have investors? Do we need to have different types of liability? But most business entities that you're going to be looking at on a smaller scale are all going to offer limited liability. You have a corporation, you have a limited liability partnership, you have a limited liability corporation, all limited partnerships. That's right, there's limited partnerships, limited liability partnerships, and LLLPs as well. There's a whole variety, but all of those have limited liability, at least for some of the members.
So again, to be completely clear, what we're talking about, again, I've got attorney Motty Stone joining me on the phone. What we're talking about is, instead of operating where it's just John's bait and tackle, but really it really is just John running the business. Anybody can say they're running a business, but unless you actually form that entity, you don't have that protection that comes along with it. So attorney Motty Stone is sharing with us, again, the different types of entities and the different levels of protection and the different, I'm curious about the fees involved as well as the ongoing commitment. Once you establish that entity, is there anything else that you need to do in order to keep it whole and up in good standing?
Sure. So the second big consideration is really taxes. You have to decide how you want your business to be taxed. And there's two ways that this can happen. The first way is that the IRS can essentially ignore the business, and all the money the business makes goes straight through to you, and all the money that you spend is also considered your expense, and that's going to be what's called a pass-through entity. And you also have something called double taxation, where the business pays its own taxes. And the bigger the business gets, the more that it makes sense to do that. The other big consideration in terms of fees and costs is going to be, do I want to spend more money for a more flexible type of entity, which would be an LLC for most people, or do I want to go as cheap as possible, and that's usually a corporation. And the other consideration is you want to talk to your accountant. Does your accountant have a preference in what he thinks is going to be less work? Because sometimes people form a corporation, they think you're going to save money. Corporation is going to cost about $275 to form. LLC is going to cost about $600 to form, so you're going to save about $300 there, and the accountant tells you, oh no, I got a bunch more work to do, I got another $1,000 a month of work. So that's really kind of the initial startup decision is, what do I want my tax picture to look like? Do I want to spend $300 for a basic entity, or do I want to spend $600 for something with a few more bells and whistles?
Well, there we have it, Incorporation 101 with Attorney Motty Stone. Motty, we're quickly running out of time, and I know our listeners will want to contact you and your office to talk about this, because this is you can't make a decision just from 5 minutes on the radio. When you're starting a business, a lot of important factors come into play. Talking with an attorney, talking with an accountant, talking with consultants and advisors are really mission critical. But Motty, how can our listeners get a hold of you and your firm if they want to discuss those options and learn more?
Well, you can find our law firm at the website WindyCityLawGroup.com, or you can always call to talk to me directly. The number is 847-933-0300. We've got offices in Skokie, Warrenville, and Schaumburg, so we're happy to meet with you wherever you are. Thanks very much, Shalom.
Fantastic. Motty Stone of the Windy City Law Group. Again, check them out online, WindyCityLawGroup.com. Lots of great information available from them. But again, I encourage our listeners, talk to an attorney like Motty Stone to learn more about the options available to you. Make sure you discuss those options, but when you're starting a business, have those conversations. Don't just go with the flow. After the break, I've got more tips, advice, and information for you, including a fascinating guest. You don't want to miss it. You're listening to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business jobs and entrepreneurship.